What's up, everybody? This is Cara, and you're listening to the Cultures for Health podcast. If you'd like to sign up to receive exclusive offers from Cultures for Health, you can text the word podcast to 1-833-760-1513. More people than ever are getting into DIY ferments at home and crafting their own kombucha. On today's show, I sit down with Rombu Organics, a newer small batch kombucha shop who loves to play with flavor. We'll discuss the endless opportunities that you have when brewing your own kombucha at home. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Cultures for Health podcast. My name is Cara Lovett. I am the in-house fermentation specialist for Cultures for Health, and I am so excited today to be sharing with you a great group of people from a company called Rombu Organics. I said Rombu, right?
Rombu? Yeah, Rombu Organics.
Okay. Great group of people from Rombu Organics, and we're so excited to have them here with us today. So would y'all like to introduce yourselves, who you are, how you got started, all the good details?
Of course, we can. I'm Brya, and I'm one of the co-founders of Rombu Organics, and we brew kombucha. We also ferment yogurts. We are dabbling in Scoby Snacks, and we are just here to help and teach and give knowledge to those who want to enhance their health journeys.
Yeah, and I'm her boyfriend, Roman, the other co-founder. So it's a two-man team here. Basically, how we got started with Ferment is I'm Ukrainian. So one day I was working at a job site doing construction for one of my dad's construction firms. And the client was also Ukrainian. So in Ukrainian culture, it's a little more traditional, I think, in the way that we go about preparing foods. You know, a lot more people, as I was growing up, had a closet full of jars with, pickles, peppers, sauerkrauts. And one of the things that Ukrainians like to make, or Russians back in the Soviet Union, was kombucha. And a lot of people had a Scoby at home and they would have kombucha at their house. But I never really like paid much attention to it until I was working on this house, and we were building a big addition to her. So we were to our house. So we were there for a long time, and I kept eyeing her Scobies in her kitchen. I was like, I think I know what they are. And she had basically what it looked like was like Scoby Hotels. She had the big jars full of tea, and she had multiple Scobies in there. So they looked like very, very interesting to me. And I was just thinking, she has so many, there's no way she could say no to just giving me one of them. So I summoned up some courage and I asked her to basically give me one of her Scobies, and she agreed to. And I brought it home for Brya, and she was like, whoa, what's that?
And that was the first time I ever saw a Scoby or anything about kombucha. So that was my stepping stone to the fermentation journey. And it was so funny how he just brought in, he was super excited for it. So that made me super excited. And because of that, I was just like, okay, I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, like I said, in Ukrainian culture, I like my mom had kombucha at home at one point, and she walked up to me and she gave me a glass of it, and she said, "Hey, just be careful. There might be a little alcohol. This might be a little funky tasting." And she let me take a sip. And to me, uh, being Ukrainian and loving pickles and loving all sorts of sauerkrauts, and you know, growing up in Ukraine, on the streets, they would have these giant barrels, these yellow barrels full of kvass, which is fermented bread. You can ferment bread, or you can ferment bread basically and make kvass out of it, which is a different type of fermented beverage. And I loved it. We used to purchase just a cup of kvass on the streets of Ukraine, and you would just go around and just take a sip of it like a coffee or a tea you would. And I loved them so much. At one point, they stopped doing it as I got older, and then I moved to the States, and they didn't have stuff like that here. My mom used to go to the Russian store, the international markets, and buy kvass, but it was never the same like on tap barrel type of taste that it had with the carbonation, you know. So I kind of like that stuff. So when she gave it to me at first, you know, I didn't say it was like love at first sip, but um, it was still like a very like interesting taste to me, and I did enjoy it at first when she gave it to me.
That's really cool. I wish I had Scobies passed down to me from generations of family tradition. That's really awesome. Just throwing it out there, since you're not seeing kvass, maybe you should start kvass. Like, super popular. I know you guys go to farmers markets, so maybe hit up the farmers markets, and that should be your next ferment. Just throwing that out there. I think it's, yeah. I mean, you guys are spreading the good word. I think it's really important to share these traditional ferments. You know, you said you used to see them all the time in markets, and now it's disappearing from markets. And I think Sandor Katz touches on that a little bit in one of our previous podcasts. But absolutely, I think that we're starting to see like a disappearance of traditional ferments in their traditional settings. And so um, I think as a generation, we have a responsibility to bring that back in a way that makes sense for us, in a way that fits our lives today. So maybe a part of your history, but it could be a part of your future too. So I kind of just extend that thought to you of like, hey, maybe kvass should be your next try, because I see beet kvass all the time. Is a really popular thing. I'm sure it's probably a little bit of a different ferment, but bringing that tradition back alive, um, I think people are
Oh
surprised
yeah,
by by what they don't realize is part of tradition, like part of fermentation tradition that's been a part of their lives, and are really excited to see those kinds of things being brought back. You know, like I'm sure you're not the only person in your area from the Ukraine that's missing that taste of home. So just food for thought for you guys, but that's really cool. So I guess
yeah,
kind of,
definitely, definitely.
yeah, so going off your idea of it wasn't love at first sip or whatever, kombucha does have an acquired taste. I think we've talked about it before, and I know it's been talked about in so many different settings, but it is a little bit different. It's a little bit funky, like you said, a little bit alcoholy at times, depending on how you ferment it. So it really is that acquired taste. Is there I don't know. Was it that way for you? Was it love at first sip for you? Do you have recommendations for people who are taking that first sip and kind of don't get that love at first sip kind of thing, but have more of the um, adverse reactions of like, oh, this is really tangy, or this is like the funk that I wasn't really looking for? How do y'all approach that on your day to day, especially at like a farmer's market, when someone walks up to your stand and is like, oh, kombucha? Like, I've heard that's really weird. How do you approach that?
Yeah, so for me, it was an acquired taste at first. I was a little bit like, whoa, what is this? Because I never tasted this before. And the helpful thing that helped me on along the way of, inquiring that taste was Roman. He introduced it in a way that made me love it at first. But it wasn't like love at first sight. It wasn't love at first sip. It was more as like love at first insight. And
Mm-hmm.
because Roman gave me those tools, I was getting excited and I tried it. I was like, I'm going to have to get used to this one. And
Mm-hmm.
so he was just like, yeah, it's probably you're just going to take little by little, each by day. And then you're going to start to like get used to it and then you're going to love it. But after like the first 3 tries, I was like, okay, I'm going to love this because I know it's good benefits for me and I'm ready to embark in that health journey. And how I speak to just clients and customers and like people that don't really know much about that kombucha, I kind of just like, hey, these are like the benefits of it. I kind of go into like a small little dialogue and I'm just like, where are
Mm-hmm.
you at? Like, have you ever tried it before? That's like one of my first questions. And if they didn't, I kind of give them like this flavor kind of kombucha that I think that their palate will love. And so they kind of is that stepping stone into gathering that kombucha.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's very important. Is everybody's at a different stage with food. I think different cultures, depending on where you brought up, where you're from, you know, your family might have been making sauerkraut or making you eat cabbage your whole life, and maybe, when you were younger, you didn't like it at first, but because your family had it at the house all the time and they ate it all the time, you acquired a taste for it. Uh, what I can tell people that don't drink kombucha or maybe don't eat a lot of fermented foods, like Sandra Katz was saying, if you want to live a healthier life, if you want to feel better, about your body, about your mind, about your soul, and all you do is eat junk food, you're gonna feel that junk. So it's
Mhm.
important for you to maybe actually introduce things like kombucha into your diet, and of course, raw kombucha. If you drink raw green tea kombucha, that you fermented for 30 days instead of 14, is going to taste a lot more vinegary, a lot more tangy, but some people love that, and that's why I love that. Now that I love kombucha so much, we usually ferment our kombucha for longer than 14 days, because we do love that tangier, more spicy taste that kind of just hits you afterwards. Even that kind of wakes up your body almost. It gives you those little kombucha goosebumps that I like to call them. But for somebody that has never drank kombucha, I give them a kombucha shot that's already flavored with our ginger or our berries, and it has a lighter taste. It's not 100% full kombucha taste, because they're getting those sweeter tones from the berries, and some of that different spice from the ginger per se. So it depends on where the person is in their journey,
Mhm.
what they're used to, and it all depends on you. And if you want to introduce something, you know uh, something as drastic, I would call kombucha drastic because it's not like your usual day-to-day thing that you would
Right.
find, even though it is tea, which a lot of people just don't even know that it's just fermented tea is what it is.
Right.
But I would say green tea has a smoother, lighter taste than like a black tea kombucha. And I would say, like you were saying about the June Scoby, it has a smoother with texture and taste with the honey. So it really helps if you brew it yourself, if you control what you put in it, and if you don't like the store bought kombucha, then make it yourself, and then maybe brew it for a little bit less, so it's not as potent at first, and maybe a little sweeter on the sweeter side. So yeah, it all depends on where you are in your journey.
Which is why we sell Scobies. Right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's
Doing
that's
it
the whole
yourself,
point. Yeah.
doing it yourself is the best way to do it. And that way
Mhm.
you can control what goes into it, and then you feel more confident, and it kind of even tastes better when you make it yourself, I would say.
It's got that love in it. That love
It's
that your
got that
mom
love
always
for
talks
sure.
about when she makes you cookies. She's like, "I bake these cookies with love." I definitely, definitely make my kombucha with love.
Yeah. And then it makes you fall in love with it.
That's right.
Mhm. And then you have to name your SCOBY, and then it just starts a whole snowball effect. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Our first
Oh,
Scoby
our
was
first
called
Scoby.
Penelope.
Oh, Penelope.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
the first
mother.
Scoby I brought home from her name was Pania Reed,
Nice.
so the house we were working at, and I brought her home. She was in a 1 gallon jar, and yeah, Brian was like, "Let's name her," and and ever since then, all the baby Scobies came from her. Honestly, we don't have Penelope anymore, but it's been
Mhm.
over 3 years. So she
Wow.
has
Yeah,
gone to
that's a
the
long
compost
time.
and into our garden, but all the baby Scobies came from her, other than the one that we're making from your dehydrated Scoby.
Oh, how's that going?
That is going actually really well. We
Yeah.
are
Cool.
seeing a Scoby form on
Nice.
top.
How long has it been?
It has been about 2 weeks,
Oh, that's pretty good. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
almost
Franklin's doing
almost two
okay.
weeks. Yeah,
You say
Franklin's out
Franklin?
here.
Yeah, his name is Franklin.
I
They're
like
like
it. I dig
Frankenstein.
it.
Yeah, Frankenstein. It was during Halloween
It
times.
was Halloween time, and yeah, it was dehydrated, so
Bringing it back to life.
bringing it back to
Yes.
life.
Come
I
Yep,
see.
on.
I
it's
see. I see.
alive.
Only literally, right? Like it actually is alive. That's the fun part.
Yeah, so hopefully we can make a nice little baby out of that, and then make more babies out of
Cool,
that
cool,
one.
cool. Cool,
Franklin
cool. And
baby.
just keep going. Yep, just keep going and
Yeah, it
going and
just keeps
going.
on going. Just keeps on going.
So I guess tied into home brewing and using our dried scobies and all of that. Um, I think one of the biggest things I hear about fermentation in general is hesitancy on time. So a lot of folks are initially hesitant to start brewing at home because they're worried it's a lot of time commitment or even that it's super complicated. Could you talk about the process, maybe your process specifically, since everyone has a different one, and what that looks like for y'all, what your time frames look like, all of that kind of good information?
So, our process in which we make kombucha is fairly simple. It is not too time consuming. All you gotta do is brew some tea and let it chill to room temperature, and then throw sugar and then put the starter in. So it's like it ranges in time, and it only takes us like only a couple, like it only takes us a few. It only take. I can't really. I was like, I don't want to say. I don't want to put a time on it. I would say
Right.
30 minutes. It would take
Mm-hmm.
us because we did a couple of batches, so we're used to it. We make things more efficient in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I, I would see that the hesitancy of not knowing that, or like knowing that
Mm-hmm.
it could take that time, rather than like, oh, usually people will, oh, I have to do it myself, it's going to take time out of my day to do that. I think that's where they see it vaguely.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that people see the fermentation time and they kind of think it is like active time, where it's not really active time. Like it's not time that you're participating in, right? Like when you brew the tea and you let it cool, you sit it on the counter and you walk away. Like there have been plenty of times where I brewed tea in the morning and I walked away to let it cool and I went and ran errands for a couple hours and then I came back and my tea was cooled and I was ready to go on to the next step. So I think maybe y'all can speak to this a little bit more, but I feel like a lot of the brewing process in kombucha and June and Scoby related fermented teas, I think it's really more of like passive time of just letting it sit and walking away than it is really hands-on hands-on work. Like I feel like the hands-on is pretty simple, like you said, just brewing tea, adding some sugar, putting it all together. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to people that are hesitant, what I would say to them is that do not worry. If you could, what I say is, if you could brew a cup of tea, you can make kombucha. Honestly,
It's a good point. Yeah.
like you said, most of the work is done by the culture itself, by the little guys. They're out there eating the
Mhm.
sugar and converting it to delicious, nutritious lactic acids and vitamins that you need for your body. I think for somebody that doesn't have a lot of time, kombucha and fermentation and making ferments yourself is actually more beneficial to you because they do the work themselves. Once you set it up and once you know how to do it, it's so easy to do. You brew the tea, you set it aside, you wait 2 weeks, and then you have kombucha right there for you. So it's actually less time consuming than other things, I think. We just started doing the yogurt, and that was the most
Mhm.
simple process I could ever think of. You have the milk, you heat it up, you put the starter in, wait 8 hours, and boom, you got loads of new yogurt. And it's a continuous process. So once you have the yogurt made the first time, it's super simple the second time, and it's even faster. So what we do, our times range obviously from our big batches to our smaller batches. Um, I say for a kombucha brew, anywhere between 7 to 30 days is fine. We never usually go to 7 days. We go usually at least 14 days because we do like more of those probiotics in there, and we do like it a little more tangier um, for our brews. What goes into uh, uh, a lot of the kombucha brewing is experimenting. So um, a lot of the time that we spend is experimenting with different ingredients, and sometimes um, a lot of the research and a lot of the um, studying what you need for those ingredients is that what really consumes the time. The brew itself is super easy and super 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 easy to follow.
So what I'm hearing is like if you want to dive deeper, that takes a little bit of time. Like if you're looking to really get into teas or flavorings or stuff like that, that takes a little bit more time. But the brewing process itself is pretty simple. And the more you do it, the better at it you are, the easier it goes for you. Is there you kind of briefly touched on different fermentation times, different based on different batch sizes. Is there, I guess, ideal characteristics that you're looking for? Like when you pull a batch of kombucha, what are the few things that you're looking for? Like a level of tanginess, like a certain pH, like what is the ideal batch of kombucha look like, taste like, ferment for y'all?
Um, yeah, all kombuchas are different. There is no ideal batch of kombucha, but for me, what I look for is for it to be alive. So after the first batch, what I really want is a lot of that yeast to build up, so I can have carbonation for my second ferment. So after you ferment it for the first time, which we usually do from 14 to 30 days, more towards the 30-day mark, and then we bottle it for second fermentation. So we want to stir that yeast from the bottom to get it into the fermentation bottles, and have that yeast build up the carbonation for our mixture in the end.
Mhm.
So if it doesn't have good carbonation, I know that your kombucha is flat. There wasn't much yeast in it, and the little guys are just sleeping. So what I look for in a perfect kombucha batch is after that second fermentation, after you pop that, you know, that cork open, and the bubbles start coming up. That's what I look for, and that's what I love to see, the little guys just jumping out of the glass at you, and having it being like really alive with all that microbial goodness.
Same. Just gonna throw that out there. Same. I
Yeah.
love them good bubbles. Yeah. I
They're good, but don't be discouraged if your kombucha
right.
doesn't have bubbles, because sometimes you won't have bubbles. Like
Mhm.
lavender, for some reason,
Yeah.
has not been giving
Yeah.
us the
Oh
greatest
yeah.
It
bubbles
did
for some
not.
certain things. Like I know, like orange peels, for some reason, just kill bubbles. So you have to experiment once you get more into it, and you will, because it just draws you in,
It
and you
consumes
just want to
you.
keep making. I have this obsession with buying all the glass containers and just
Oh
making
yeah.
more and more kombucha. Like, hey, what kind of flavor can we make next? So it will draw you in, and you will see that certain things work better than others. But doesn't mean just because you don't have bubbles after your second ferment that your kombucha is bad. It's probably still delicious, and you know it all depends on how you like it. So yeah, there's no ideal batch of kombucha, that's for sure.
I guess you have a point. No, that's very true. I think it's interesting because you'll see videos on the internet of people who have like popped a bottle and the bottle exploded all over their kitchen. They're like, "Oh no, my kitchen!" And I'm like, "Yes, your kitchen!"
Yeah, so
Like,
ideally you don't want it to end up on the ceiling. I mean, if it's way too
uh,
alive too, then
yeah.
you have to find that perfect balance for you. Yeah, if you have really tall ceilings, there you go.
I don't know. I've definitely had a bottle or two explode on me before, but I think it's kind of it sucks to have to clean your kitchen, but it's also really thrilling to see that
Yes,
microbial action
yes.
taking place. If you leave a bottle fermenting for a couple extra days without burping it, you can easily have that reaction. I think it happens to anyone who's ever, been in any part of their kombucha journey. I'm sure they've seen that.
Yep.
I
And
don't
what I
know.
say
It's
to
it's
that
kind of
is,
crazy.
yeah, what I say is that always try to chill your bottles before opening.
Oh, yeah.
For the second ferment. You wanna
Hmm.
throw the bottles in the fridge anyway, um, after the second ferment,
Yes.
so it doesn't go flat after a while, because it will, after it's eaten all the sugar and had all the
Right.
carbonation, it will die out. So put it in the fridge and keep it super bubbly, and that way when you open it, um, it won't explode as much. It still might explode. If
Uh-huh.
you left the bottle for like 14 days and for a fact it's going to explode, put it in the
Right.
fridge. A freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in the freezer. If you if you freeze it actually, or almost freeze it, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
freeze it
Yeah, I
completely
wouldn't
because that
fully
might kill
freeze
all the bacteria. But if
or
you
break the
know it's going
glass.
to explode, then you know if there's no way to open it, then freeze it because then it won't do anything.
Or open on your porch so you don't have to clean
Yeah,
up.
or
That's
go
what I
outside
use.
and have
That's
yourself
what
a
I
champagne
do.
party.
That's 100. I had a couple of old bottles about a week or two ago, and I opened them all on my porch, and it looked like I was having a party for one, for sure.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It was cool though. Like it was fun for me.
That's
Kombucha
Okay.
is
I
always
love
a
it.
party.
I
Yeah.
love the poppin'.
Yeah, for sure. So I know we're talking a little bit about things that could go right and wrong, but what are some of the most common problems that we see for newbies? I know y'all are still a little bit newer to the business and the trade, but are there newbie issues that you've run into personally, or that customers, people you know, have run into, um, or things that you would just advise against or advise for and able to help your ferments? Any information that you could give us to all of our new kombucha brewers out there who are listening?
Yeah, so I think one of the common problems that newbies might run into when brewing at home is killing the starter culture.
Yep. Hmm.
That's one of the big ones because that's the beginning of the process. You got to make sure that everything is checked off, it's green to go. And in order to ensure that is to make sure that the brew tea that you brew is at room temperature because that's when the culture can eat, love, and thrive in.
Yeah. So you don't want to kill the culture at first. That's the number one rule, is to take care of the little guys. Um, they some of the most common problems, um, you know, is con yeast. We all love con yeast, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all
Oh
know
yeah.
about that good old con yeast.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it that much of a problem though, because
Especially in
in
kombucha.
kombucha, yeah, especially in kombucha, we get more con yeast with our ginger brews.
Yeah, that
We
makes
we
sense.
make a ginger ale where for some reason the con really loves the sugary ginger
Mm-hmm.
environment, but because kombucha is so vinegary and has that pH level, it doesn't it's not so susceptible to con yeast, but you can get mold. That's another
Mm-hmm.
problem that you can get. That is a little more serious because unlike con yeast, you can't ingest mold, and that's actually bad for you. You
Mm-hmm.
when you get con yeast, you can just take it off the top, and if you have a little bit, it's okay. But with mold,
Right.
you shouldn't really have that. So if you do see mold in your booch, um, then just dump it and restart it. Okay, that's all
Mm-hmm.
you can do with that.
Absolutely.
Mold can arise from certain things like not sanitizing your vessels correctly, or you know, it could have just got because there's mold particles in the air all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just inevitable. Sometimes when you get into different teas, like you have become a little more um, uh, into kombucha and a little more comfortable brewing, and you start experimenting with different teas. Some teas have certain ingredients, even though they're organic or natural, they might produce mold. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll run into stuff like that. But usually, we honestly, knock on wood, we have been very lucky with our brews, and we haven't had much problems. There was a couple brews that once you start brewing, you kind of know what it smells like, you kind of know what it tastes like, and
Right.
you know what to look for. So at first, when you're brewing it, you're looking at the scope, you're thinking, "No, this. What is this? What's going on?" But most of the time, just let it brew for the 14 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then look at your Scoby, and you'll be able to tell. It's pretty clear if you have a healthy Scoby, and or if you have mold. But sometimes when you're first starting out, you can't, and there was a couple brews where I smelt it and I was like, this smells different, So it was different than what I was used to. And I was like, this might have, turned a little more alcoholic, or I didn't know what it
Mm-hmm.
was. So I just restarted it. I've heard of people getting vinegar eels, which is, I personally, I've never seen them, but apparently they look like little worms or little strands of hair on top of your brew, and you will pretty much know if you have vinegar eels, I think, because they move and crawl around like little worms. So that is something you need to watch out for. I wouldn't really worry too much about it. I guess vinegar eels come if you sanitize your vessels using vinegar, which we never do. We use a sanitation liquid and hot water for that. So we never use vinegar. Sometimes, like the dehydrated SCOBY, I know we use the white vinegar for if you don't have a starter culture. But with that, I have not yet seen vinegar eels or anything like that, and it looks very healthy. So, knock on wood, we've been very lucky not to get any of these problems. But those are some of the problems that could arise, and yeah,
I've literally never heard of vinegar eels. I don't think I've ever even see like, we sell dried scobies with
right.
bottles of vinegar. I don't even
Hmm.
think I've ever seen a ticket that was like, "Hey, something's growing in my scobie." I mean, like obviously we get those
Honestly,
tickets all the time.
I have never either, but I've gotten a message 2 days ago from somebody who asked me, uh, could you get vinegar eels? And they said they purchased a SCOBY from a woman that they knew, like a neighbor or something. And
Mhm.
I was I honestly have never seen. Honestly, myself, I have never seen them. So I looked it up, and apparently, if you maybe leave your starter out for too long, it turns into a vinegar. Or if the person
Oh.
somehow got it contaminated with some sort of
Mhm.
other type of maybe vinegar in their fridge or so, I don't even know. But it does happen apparently, and yeah, just get healthy scobies from a trusted source, and you should be good.
So it looks like we actually have a blog post on our website about it. That's actually pretty crazy though. I've never heard of them and I don't think I've ever seen a message about them. I get a lot of messages about is this a SCOBY? Is it mold? When people are just starting to grow their SCOBYs and they see that thin film, and sometimes that
Yep.
thin film doesn't always look, like shiny and shimmery, and sometimes it
Yep.
looks kind of more like the beginning of commies maybe. We get a lot of
Mhm.
questions of like, is this a baby SCOBY or is this mold? But like never have I ever gotten a question about vinegar eels. I'm learning so much.
Yeah,
Wow.
vinegar
But yeah,
eel.
for any of our listeners out there, there is a post on the Cultures for Health website about it.
But like I
Um,
said, kombucha is very forgiving. It's a
oh,
super
absolutely.
super easy ferment for beginner fermenters, I think.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's one of the most forgiving ones that you can't go wrong with.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like from our website, it is on key with what you were saying about potentially being vinegars that sit for a really long time. It says present in really raw vinegars and really acidic vinegars. So I'm sure if you were to, like leave your kombuchas to ferment for months and months and kind of let all of that activity run through, you may be
But
susceptible to picking those up.
fun
Yes.
fact about vinegar eels, you can actually, if you do have vinegar eels and you find you could breed them for your fish. We
Oh
have
yeah, I saw that as one of the top posts. It was like vinegar eels to feed your fish tank. Like, no
Yeah, I
thanks.
was looking them up, and I was like, well, we have a bunch of
Yeah, a
fish.
bunch of fish.
Why don't
That's
we get some vinegar
permaculture.
eels? I don't know.
Why don't we just do it?
Yeah,
Fish
yeah. I feel like I don't know. I would be a little worried having like kombucha and vinegar eels in the same house. I'd be a little bit worried that they would just like overtake each other. But like, I guess that's permaculture, right? You got to feed some things to let other things be happy, and
Yeah,
that's like bringing garden into your house with. That's crazy. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Learning so many things. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess kind of taking a different direction. There's two types of brewing kombucha, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the industry, we find ourselves kind of approaching kombucha in more of a continuous brew style than we really do in like kind of like I guess what you would call like a batch start stop. At least I feel like we do a little bit of continuous brew. What do you guys do? What do you recommend? Do you know what continuous brewing is? batch brewing, all that good stuff?
So,
Scoby Hotels.
good question. Honestly, for us, we do both types. So we don't really
Mm-hmm.
see a huge difference in the way that, between continuous and batch. I know that back in Ukraine, most, even though you said that continuous brews are becoming more popular nowadays, I think it was more traditional to have a continuous brew at the house because,
Mm-hmm.
when somebody would come over, uh, my mother or my grandmother, she would actually go into the kombucha vessel with the ladle and pour us some kombucha right from the brew. So maybe she didn't have a spigot on the bottom, but she would
Right.
always take from the vessel and give us a little booch. And then whenever we had tea, she
Just add
would
a little
kind
bit
of
back.
yeah, just whenever you have the teapot and then you pour it into the cups, and then whatever is left in the teapot at the end is usually a stronger, stronger tea that's been brewing there for a longer time. So you take that tea, you put it into your kombucha brew. You add little bit of water with a little bit of sugar, and then you kind of feed continuously your brew. So now people are saying that continuous brews are becoming more popular because I think they're easier as a brew to maintain a continuous brew. So with a continuous brew, your vessel is usually bigger. So we do have 3-gallon glass containers with spigots that we continuously brew, but uh, even those we will take out the SCOBY and we will sanitize the vessel between brews. So uh, only some of them will we just leave the SCOBY in there. I think it's important to sanitize your vessels between the brews, and to even clean your SCOBYs off a little bit. It gives it a much cleaner taste and much smoother kombucha in the end if you take care of your kombucha more often. But we do have a bunch of small batch kombuchas because, like I said, we do love to experiment with different
Yeah.
flavors.
Right.
Um, so yes,
Different teas.
Absolutely.
And
so we'll have 1 gallon vessels with blood orange, mint, lavender, all sorts of different flavors. But even the 1 gallon ones, we have some of them do have spigots on them. So we will walk up
Mm-hmm.
to the brew after 14 days per se, and maybe pour ourselves a little glass, give it a little taste, have ourselves a little raw kombucha in the morning. We like to,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So it all depends on how you are, and how what kind of vessel you have, and what you're really doing with your scobies per se. If you have a continuous brew, it's more beneficial to keep your scobies in there because you can use it as a Scoby motel. Once you
Mm-hmm.
get the continuous brew going, your ferments will take actually less time to brew. So it's a lot less maintenance and it's a lot less time consuming than a small batch brew. But you will have a lot of kombucha that you will have to keep drinking because after a while, if you just leave it in there, it will turn into a Scoby hotel and it will just be
Whether
super
you want it or
vinegary.
not.
Yeah, super vinegary, and you'll just have a bunch of big Scobies in there. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not a problem either. You just add more tea to it, and restart
Right.
your brew. So it all depends on the person. If you drink a lot of kombucha and if you sell kombucha like we do, then definitely have bigger vessels with continuous brews where you don't have to spend so much time, on maintenance and cleaning the vessels all the time. You could clean the vessel, 2 or 4 times a year, or harvest some of the scobies, leave some in there. It all
Mm-hmm.
depends on how your lifestyle is and what your time is and what you're experimenting with.
Do in your experience with brewing in both styles, do you find that continuous brew gets more yeasty? I've seen that in the past where like without if you clean your vessel every couple of batches, that yeast that sits on the bottom, I heard y'all say you like to shake it and get it in the bottles, but um some people don't, maybe sometimes you don't. Do you find that there becomes an imbalance of yeast with your continuous brews. I've seen that in the past, and other kombucha brewers that I know have also seen that in the past, where the kombucha gets like super cloudy and has a high level of yeast. Has that ever happened to y'all?
Yes, definitely. And like I said, it all depends on your preference. So I
Mm-hmm.
prefer my kombucha to have that yeast, but not too much because,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, with the continuous brew, if you let the scobies grow bigger and bigger and have more scobies in there, the yeast will kind of fall below the spigot line. And when you're filling
Mm-hmm.
your kombucha bottles, uh, you know, if you don't shake it up, you will have that yeast just building up on the bottom over and over and over. Sorry, that's our dog snoring over here. Um,
It's cute.
it's okay.
So
Just leave him.
is there advice that you can give to people who are experiencing too much yeast? Like what do
Yeah.
you do in that situation?
Yeah, so we if you don't stir your yeast into your bottles when you're harvesting your kombucha, you will have that buildup of yeast on the bottom. And then per se, you get to the bottom of your brew and then you're filling your bottles and all you're getting is yeast at that point. So if you want to
Mhm.
avoid that, like I said, give it a nice little stir or a nice little shake before you're filling your kombucha and restarting your uh, restarting your brew. Um, sorry, he's just like a little piggy.
I can hear him a little. He's cute.
Oh my god. So yeah, the advice I would give is give it a little stir so you get an even amount of yeast in your bottles. And if you don't want that yeast, then do what we do: clean your vessel more often, and maybe don't leave it for 4 cycles or 6 cycles, and give it a nice little cleaning after the third cycle, so you won't get that cloudiness and you'll get a smoother taste. You'll know your vessel is sanitized. You didn't get any uh, per se fruit flies. That's another big problem with kombucha. Is
Right.
fruit
Absolutely.
flies love kombucha. It's not
Absolutely.
it's not horribly bad for your kombucha, but say you left your continuous brew going for 6 months, and now those little guys got in there right in the beginning, and you haven't checked it for 6 months, and now you got uh,
A colony, a whole
some
fruit
sort of
fly
some
colony.
sort of
Yeah.
party going on over there with like
Absolutely.
3 generations of fruit flies or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
So there are
Happened to all of
advantages.
us.
There are advantages
Hmm.
to check in on your scobies and to cleaning your vessels. But if you don't have that time, like I said, kombucha is super forgiving, super easy to
Hmm.
work with, and it does all the work for you.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Okay, so to segue then, I heard you mention Scoby Hotel Motels a few minutes ago. Um, I know we just did a segment on that ourselves, and you're talking about maintenance now. Do you have Scoby Hotel Motels personally? Do y'all put work into maintaining them? Do you kind of just let them go wild? How long do you keep one? Any advice that you can give there in terms of storing Scobies for long-term use, or just having those hotels and keeping them active for when you're ready to use them?
Yeah, so we do have Scoby Hotels and we love them. And we sell them obviously because we
Hmm.
collect over time Scobies. And you kind of like
Absolutely.
looking around like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? And so
Someone please take them.
yeah, it's like, my goodness, is there
Adopt
anyone
them.
to just take this one off
Yes.
my hands? And
They
Yeah,
are little babies, that's for sure.
yeah, they are
for
little
sure.
babies.
And it breaks your heart to having to get rid of them. So yeah,
But it's good to
we
know
leave
they're
them
going
out
to
for
good
adoption.
homes.
Yeah.
Find them good homes. Yeah, absolutely.
So we do have a bunch of Scoby hotels, and you don't have to really maintain them that much. With every new Scoby that comes along, we just add a little more
Mhm.
of the kombucha that came with it, and
Mhm.
the Scoby hotel really takes care of itself. Scobies can stay alive for a very long time, especially if they're
Mhm.
in a Scoby hotel, because the pH level gets so high that um, the Scobies are very happy in that environment. So, like I said, just add a little more culture to it from time to time. You'll see
Mhm.
new Scobies forming on top of your Scoby hotels. So it's an infinite exponential process, and you learn to love them, and
Mhm.
you treat them like your own.
Yeah, for sure. So going on treating them like your own, I know we were just talking about having a ton of them, having extra. Have you figured out other uses or thought of other uses, want to experiment with other uses for scobies? Like I know one really popular thing is to like make fruit leather with scobies, grind them up and make dehydrated fruit leather with them. I've seen people eat scobies on salads before. Is there something y'all working on? Things you would like to try that give use to your scobies that are sitting collecting in hotels? I know, I'm sure a ton of our kombucha consumers out there also have this issue because, like y'all said, it just grows, grows, grows. So, what are you trying, or what are you interested in trying, or thinking about trying these days with your scobies?
I think I think the number one thing you could possibly do with your Scoby is give it to a friend. Share your
Mhm.
Scobies so somebody else can start a new batch with them. That's the number one thing you could do with your
Absolutely.
leftover Scobies. Give it to a neighbor. They might be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," and then you'll freaked out. But um, sharing is caring.
Mhm.
One of the other things that we've been working on.
One of them is scobies that can be used for skincare. Um,
Oh, okay.
the acidity level is really good to like get your pimples. I know I broke up time after time. I usually break up, and I usually get like this really concentrated green tea kombucha, something that I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to digest because I just don't want to digest on that level because that's my preference. But it's
Mhm.
that level of where I can just put it right onto that little pimple and then give it like do it maybe 3 times, and then it starts to
Mhm.
dehydrate it, make it dry, and so it makes it a faster time to get rid of that acne. So we are going to work on some face masks of
Ooh.
kombucha. That's what we're working on. We're trying to see like how we can even the processes in which of doing this. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to do with one of our scobies.
Yeah, kombucha has so many benefits that
Right.
you could use it for so many things. I know people use it for acne, skin blemishes, psoriasis.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
you could just put a little bit of the green tea because it has antioxidants on your
Right.
acne, and you will clear up in a couple of days. We've known it from experience. Now, don't put the scobies
Yeah.
on your eyes, or that will burn. But there are certain ways to apply it to your skin where they will be super beneficial for you. Now, like you said, Scoby Snacks is something else we wanted to make, which is
Mhm.
dehydrating the Scoby into a fruit leather kind of thing, or like a flavored leather almost. My dog, he's a French bulldog, and he loves chewing on like those white
Oh, like
bone marrow.
rawhide.
So
Mhm.
he loves chewing on stuff, and um, that's one of the things that we are working on. Is you can blend the Scoby in a blender, add strawberries or berries, or some sort of other seasoning. Maybe I'll have to add some chicken for him or something, and then you let that Scoby dry up into um, a harder version of it, and then let your dog just chew on that. Now you could chew on it too. It doesn't have to just be for your pet. They're still full of probiotics, and they're still full of uh, those great benefits for you. Um, yeah, as long as you flavor it, I think it will taste delicious. Now, eating a raw Scoby, I don't know, they're a little tangy, a little sour. I have bit into a Scoby, and it's just like biting into a lemon. Like it's not. I love lemons, but I wouldn't just eat it raw. So
You just, yeah,
give it a little
bite it like an
flavor, and
apple.
yeah, if you don't have any neighbors to give your scobies to, you don't have any dogs, and you're not intending on eating them, you could always compost your scobies. They're
Of
great for your
course.
garden. I know they regulate the pH. Depending on what your pH
Mm-hmm.
level, you can either make it higher or
Right.
lower, and it's
Mm-hmm.
great for your garden. So, you know, you don't have to just throw them out.
So what I'm hearing is I have too much is never an excuse.
Never,
Never.
no,
Never an
Never have too
excuse to
many.
stop brewing kombucha.
yeah, definitely, you
So
can
I
never have
guess
enough.
good. Yeah, I would agree. Never enough. We definitely have. I think right now in cultures we for health we have. Oh, I would probably say close to 200 gallons going. Um, of
Wow,
course, we go for the Scobies, and we use the starter and the vinegar for other purposes. But yeah, definitely like
that's a lot of
never have
people.
enough.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we've gosh, I'm trying to think of what we used to do. Um, Give me 1 second to do my math. We used to have about 360 gallons going at a time.
Wow,
And we're getting back there now. Yeah, the company moves, so we kind of shut everything down, and we're ramping back up to that. But 360 is about where we like to sit to hit our demand for Scobies. But I think sometimes finding a use for your starter tea, or even just like your drinkable tea, like there's only so much that you can drink and share. Um, so I think finding other uses for it is really nice. Like I've heard of smoothies. I've heard of mixing it with cocktails. Is there
oh yeah,
other ways that you like to consume your kombucha? Like I know we can flavor it, and there's always a million flavor options out there. We can always keep it interesting in that way. But are there other ways that y'all like to keep it interesting with cocktails or smoothies or? I don't know. I've heard salad dressings. I know we just talked
definitely.
about the SCOBY, but what about the starter? What are your advice for extra starter?
Yep, extra starter works great for vinaigrettes. You could start
Yeah.
making it into a vinegar, like you said, and it's super tasty because you can give
Hmm.
it different flavors. So yeah, who doesn't love salads? You can make sangria out of it. Our friend from Florida, who we just sent some kombucha to, she got a hibiscus, a grape, pomegranate, and she was mixing it with her red wine for a little
Oh,
sangria.
interesting.
So that
Nice.
works. She was even talking about doing mimosas. You know, you could do a little morning probiotic
Hmm.
mimosa if that's your thing. Yeah, smoothies work great. Add probiotics to your smoothies. Why not? It's you want those little guys
Hmm.
as much in your food as possible. So if you can find different ways to use it, then do, because that's only more beneficial to you. You know, who doesn't love a little micro army in your sangria? Good for your gut and your heart. You know,
Yeah, and so is the red wine, right?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So is there a favorite that y'all would like to talk about? A favorite flavor or favorite way to consume it that you've found over your journey that you would like to share?
Yeah, so the flavor of the season, I must say, for me, is strawberry acai flavoring with kombucha. I'm a very berry kind of girl, and I think
Mm-hmm.
through the journey and over the time, I'm a barista, and so I like to mix with flavors. So strawberry acai was the main footing of like mixing it with kombucha. I was like, okay, this is going to be really nice because some of my girlfriends love the berry kind of taste. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I add that together and just like that's with kombucha, I was like, yes, girl, you're getting that also.
Surprise.
Surprise. So that kind of gives them a little bit more of like, okay, trusted. And then also, I actually do like kombucha because I turned people that said I hate kombucha. Like my mother hated kombucha.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I gave her something that is kind of like with strawberries or a little fruity for her, she's kind of like,
Right.
whoa, what is this? I want more. I'm addicted. Let's do it. So I'm really into strawberry. I'm trying to mix the lavender because lavender is like my favorite flower, and I love the benefits of
Mm-hmm.
lavender. And,
Right.
I try to make a routine for myself, like have a morning kombucha and kind of have like a nighttime kombucha. And lavender can really complement it, but it has like this very perfumed taste. So I'm trying to add like some berries to it. So I kind of mix it with raspberry a little bit, and it's kind of working out. And with green tea kombucha. So that's one of my top flavors that I'm working on right now.
Yeah, we have so
That
many
sounds
flavors,
good.
Cara. We have so
Oh,
many
I'm
flavors.
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I wish
Um,
we were bottling and canning so that I could also experiment with flavors, but I get to do that in our flavor kits. But otherwise, I'm just handing out bottles to the office and being like, "Hey, do you guys like that? Maybe
Yeah.
we'll make it a flavor kit one day." I literally
yeah,
have I have a bottle return crate in
yeah.
our in like our group break room, and everyone just throws bottles in there, and then every couple weeks I take all the bottles and I refill them with whatever flavor I feel like, and I hand them out, and I'm
That's
like,
so
well, let
smart.
me know if it's good. And then sometimes it'll turn into something like our seasonal holiday kit, and sometimes it just kind of goes in my memory bank of, oh, that was a good flavor, I should do that again.
Yeah, how's that holiday kit coming?
Oh, great. 10 out of 10. We're so ready. We're so stoked. Yeah, it's going to be wonderful.
It's
Talking
not
about it
out yet,
today,
right?
working on it today. Oh no, it's going to release Black Friday. That's
No,
going to
Black
be like
Friday.
our
Okay.
Black
Can't
Friday
wait.
release product.
Can't
Yeah,
wait.
I'm really excited. What about you? What's your favorite kombucha flavor?
Like I said, oh my god, so many flavors.
So many.
My favorite right now will have to be the hibiscus
Mm.
blueberry ginger that we have.
Beautiful color. It was
It
great. Everyone go to their Instagram. It's really great. Beautiful color.
it it,
Beautiful bubbles.
it,
Yeah.
it is definitely one of the people's favorites as well. It was one of the first
Hmm.
flavors that we kind of went after. Um, I'll give you guys the insider secret to the Rombucha recipe
Ooh.
right now. So what we like to do is start off with the tea itself. So we use all organic
Hmm.
ingredients. Um, we use organic cane sugar. Now you don't have to do that,
Hmm.
but that's what we do.
It helps.
Yeah,
I
it
think it
helps. So
helps.
having good premium teas, also helps.
Hmm.
So um, we started making the hibiscus tea right from F1. So we brew organic hibiscus flower in the hot water with a little bit of black and green tea, and that way, the hibiscus is a little stronger, but it still has that happy medium where the kombucha is happy. Now it gives it that nice red color and like a smoother, a little sweeter taste, I like to say, than like a green tea or a black tea. So uh, the flavor of the hibiscus is infused into the kombucha itself. Then what we do for the ginger and the blueberry is we actually brew a separate ginger ale, is what I like to call it. We brew a ginger ale using ginger bugs, which we activate using ginger and sugar. And
Hmm.
when we brew the blueberries and ginger, at first we used to make a compote, which we would boil the water, but now we do a cold press. Uh, if you don't
Hmm.
have a juicer, you can just put it through a blender, but a juicer works the best. You put your blueberries, your ginger in there, you get that good juices, and um, the ginger inside has a little micro army of its own, which eats the sugar
Hmm.
that you provide for it, and that's where you get a lot of those bubbles. So we brew the ginger ale, and once we have the ginger ale and the kombucha ready, we give it a second ferment. So we do those separately, where we like to carbonate the kombucha and then we like to carbonate the ginger. Usually it takes about 3 to 5 days, and then we'll mix the mixtures into a final bottle. And usually, we'll put it in the fridge after that point, and it will be pretty bubbly for whoever opens it next. So yeah, that's kind of like our secret. We love using ginger. Some of our flavors don't have ginger, but like I said, you don't need the ginger for all that carbonation. You can just second ferment your kombucha for a little bit longer using uh, fruits, or you could use a fruit juice, you could use a puree, you could use a fruit syrup. It doesn't have to be a fruit either. You could use any type of flavoring, and maybe add some sugar for the second ferment to get those carbonation bubbles too. I think a real nice kombucha should have some bubbles in it.
Absolutely. So my next question, I guess, is where's my bottle? When do I get some? When do I get to taste this deliciousness that you're describing? 10 out of 10 would love to. I might have to make a trip to the New York area soon and try some of that stuff out because that sounds really good.
We will send you a bottle right away.
As soon as possible.
Please do. This is me nodding for the people who can't see me. This is me nodding. The answer is yes, please. So I know you just kind of touched on it a little bit more, but if you could go a little bit more in depth to what flavors you like to stick to, what flavors you tend to stray away from. I think people in the past have had issue with citrus, and I know you mentioned orange peel kind of flatlines, and I've heard of the pith and citrus being fairly bitter. Are there things that you found that you're like, yeah, I don't know that I would really use that in kombucha again? Or are there things that like, yes, every time ginger is 100% great, every time I will use this?
Yeah. Ginger really works well. It has that good yeast that we're looking for. It's super alive. I would I would highly recommend using ginger in your second ferment. You get that good carbonation going. And yeah, ginger is definitely one of the top ones. Hibiscus works super well in your first fermentation. Like I was saying, we put hibiscus flower straight into our first ferment when we're brewing our tea. Uh, it gives it a nice red color. It's beautiful, and it gives it a nice smoother texture to the kombucha. Now, if you want a blue kombucha, you could use pea flowers, which gives it a beautiful blue tone. You could experiment; those work great. For some reason, our lavender on our first ferment, it did not work out so well. Um, so maybe stay away from that, just from experience. And we just did an experiment where we brewed some elderberry and Genesea organic tea blend. However, it had some stevia leaves in it. So I would highly suggest to stay away from stevia. Anything, even if you see artificial flavored kombucha in the store that has stevia in it, it was probably pasteurized in this, and it was probably it's probably not made the way that it's supposed to, because stevia really does not like kombucha. The two microbes just fight, and they do not get along. So stay away from stevia leaves, even if they are organic and premium. They do not work good in your kombucha brew. We actually had like a weird moldy yeasty thing come up, and yeah, no good. So we just I would always recommend using a Scoby in your fermentations. We just did an experiment with using the same tea, same sugar, same amount of everything, except one of the batches we didn't add the Scoby, and for some reason, I mean, you can make ones without, but it just works better with a Scoby, because that one without it did mold, and it's not like I have never made them without a Scoby, but you really want the Scoby in there for the optimal environment to get it's a mama to your Scoby. Can the child grow up without a mother? Yeah, but is that child going to be a full, I mean, maybe, but do you really want it to grow out without a mother? Put the Scoby in there. So I highly recommend brewing with the Scoby, even though it is possible to brew without. Another thing that really works well with kombucha is what would you say, honey?
We tried blood orange.
Blood orange works
Okay.
great.
Like fresh or dried? Did you use the pulp? Did you use the juice?
So it was a blood orange organic tea. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Probably peel then.
So I don't think it had the peel, but it was like a natural blood orange flavor that worked great. I think anything more fruitier works good. We've made a tangerine blend.
Yeah, tangerine.
One of our most popular ones are tangerine and peach, which we also brew, starting off with an organic peach tea. So we brew the peach tea to get that peach. It's super tasty, super sweet.
It
Even
is.
after a long ferment, you get that nice peachy taste in your kombucha. And we do the same with the tangerine. And those are like our main ones: tangerine, peach, hibiscus, where we infuse the flavor from the beginning. And it works super great.
Really good. Really good.
Yeah, for second ferment, on the second ferment, you can't really go wrong. Try everything. I know people, use chia seeds and rhubarb and all sorts of. You could put anything. You could put
Turmeric.
jalapeno. I don't know. You put anything into your second ferment. So have fun with it. Try things out. You know if you're not there yet, then stick to the basics. Green tea, black tea are the basic ones, but I know white tea, oolong tea work
Mhm.
just as good.
Mhm.
So, just stick to the main ones. Don't go crazy with like some tea that has 300 different organic things in it or something. And you're like, I don't know if this will work. So,
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like single batches.
yeah,
Yeah, my advice is always, and the way that I kind of live my life is look at the grocery store, see what flavors are on the shelves at the grocery store. If there's something you like that intrigues you, take it, try it, taste it, make it your own. I can't tell you how many times I found flavors that I liked in kombucha that I never really thought I liked in kombucha because I tried an odd bottle at the grocery store. And so then you're not having to think of combinations necessarily. The combinations are right in front of you. You're just able to execute them on your own level in your own way. So if you find one, that's like, I don't know, ginger peach pear, and you didn't like the pear in it, then you can try a ginger peach version. But then you know what you like and what you don't like out of that. So I think in that sense, that's where grocery store kombucha can be helpful for you. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different fermentation and flavoring process, which is why I always say take it and turn it into your own, because it will turn out a little bit different, obviously. But I think if you're stumped and if you're looking for new flavors and if you're looking to try new things, absolutely peruse the grocery store and see what your local grocery store has to offer, because all of those big companies are also working on different flavors all the time. Also, peruse your farmers market and see what the local
that's right.
brewers
Yeah.
look at the. Yeah, I
Support
mean, I
farmers
can't tell you.
market.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the farmers market, grabbed a cup of kombucha that I haven't tried yet, and walked around the farmers market while I was drinking kombucha. Like, it's so accessible and it's so delicious, and there's so many different flavors. So absolutely, I think if you don't try it and like it, try it again, try it your way, try it somebody else's way. There's a million different ways to have it. There's a
Yeah.
million different ways to enjoy it. I don't
And
know.
talk
Do you
about it.
guys?
Share it.
Yeah,
Talk with
yeah,
your friends. See
absolutely.
what they're making.
Mhm.
You just talked about pear.
Exchange
I was like,
bottles.
okay,
Yeah,
I'm making pear now.
Yeah.
yeah,
I gotta
yeah. I
try
don't
that
know.
one.
Yeah,
Um,
if you have a neighborhood that likes to brew kombucha, maybe instead of a book club, you have a brew club, and you all bring a bottle of what you're working on that week. There's a million different ways to get into it, to get that
yeah,
kombucha
that I
bug,
think
so to speak.
that's what we don't get at the grocery store too,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because
You
there's
don't get
nobody
that
there,
community.
nobody telling you, hey, this is what you're buying, and nobody's there to talk to you about.
And you have different options too that are there and far and
Can be
wide.
daunting. Hmm.
It could be
Yeah.
daunting.
Yeah,
And you don't have the brewer sitting there telling you how much they love their product and how much you'll love it because they love it, which I definitely think is part of the sharing is caring initiative, is really having that in-person connection, or connection in the way that we're talking today, of just sharing that information, sharing that knowledge is it's vital. And I think it's a really big part of why I love fermentation and why people continue to participate in fermentation alongside of the good gut microbes and living a better, healthier, more sustainable life.
yeah. I think it is a community that we can talk and share information and learn from each other, and that's what I love as well. Hearing from different people and telling them, hey, I tried this and this is what happened. I'm like, whoa, I never tried that. So yeah, even
Like, I've never heard of vinegar eels. Like, that's crazy to me. Yeah, I've never
yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. So I guess going off of that, is there a last comment, word of advice, tip, trick, whatever that you can give me and the listeners at home to living their best kombucha life?
I think the most important one is patient. Be patient with it and give so much love to it also, because love gives a good energy and then also will grow. And then also just like ask questions. If you don't know, look it up. If you don't know, go to Culture for Health. If you don't know, ask someone that might have expertise in it. And also never give up. Sometimes there is some fail things, but keep on pushing yourself. Be a cheerleader, be positive, and it will turn out to be a great experience. That's what I always live by, and also morally, just keep on going and be happy and be positive in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you said it very well.
Definitely, for sure.
Never give up.
Yeah.
Patience is definitely a virtue.
Especially with something like kombucha that takes that time.
Yeah, and I think another important thing is uh, that people are more aware of what they're putting into their bodies. I think if you go to the grocery store, start looking at what you're eating, start looking at the ingredients, start looking at what's being put into your body, because that's what I did. That's how I got started. I started questioning, hey, is this really good for me? And why am I eating this? Am I getting something from it, or am I just addicted to the sugars that are inside? Am I just addicted to these artificial flavors that they put in there to trick my brain to thinking, hey, I love this stuff, but here I need my sugar fix. So I think it's important for people to start realizing what's going into their bodies. Maybe, take a second and make some stuff for yourself that will benefit you in the long run. Yeah, it will take a little patience, and it might not be an instantaneous thing where you have to wait 2 weeks for it, but after that it will be so rewarding, and you'll be so happy that you put those 20 to 30 minutes in that one day, and then you'll have kombucha for the next 2 weeks. It doesn't get better than that. You really should take care of yourself, take care of your body. And I can't stress enough that having these little probiotics on your side, whether it be from kombucha or yogurt or sourdough, or just get it into your system, and they will help you fight your battles for you. They will be on your side, fighting all the bad bacteria that's in the air, in the environment, in our foods these days. Like, all this stuff is so processed and altered in such ways that are not natural. Why not have those natural little guys fight those bad guys that maybe you're like, oh, I still want to eat that because it's delicious, but at least I have these good guys fighting those bad guys now, and I will be healthier, and I will even live longer.
That's right.
Everything in moderation, right?
Yes,
Everything in moderation.
everything in moderation. That is one
Except
of the
fermentation. I'm just gonna rule that one out right now. Eat as much fermentation as you want. Always, forever. Love fermentation.
yes, you multiply in the
And pass them
cultures.
down. Teach your children.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate y'all being on the podcast today and taking time to talk to me about kombucha. So thank you to the team from Rombu Organics. We are so happy to have you here. And if y'all haven't already checked out their live, check out their live. We did an Instagram live on their Instagram and on the Cultures for Health Instagram, where we talk more about kombucha and yogurts and all other things delicious fermentation. So please check that out as well. And we hope to see you at the next Cultures for Health podcast. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank you, Cara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Rombu Organics and all of our listeners for tuning in. We hope you learned a little with us today. Remember, if you'd like to sign up to receive exclusive offers and updates from Cultures for Health, you can text the word podcast to 1-833-760-1513. Hope y'all have a ferment-filled day.